Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pod Mavericks After Dark. I started the show a little bit early for once. It's about 10:40 on Friday, November 10th, the day before Veterans Day. I'm joined by Josh Bowe, as always, my co-editor over at MavsMoneyball.com. Josh, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm hanging in there. If you guys are watching on YouTube live or after the fact, you'll notice that I do not have my camera on. It is because I woke up this morning with I've said this in our Slack multiple times, but it's the best visual I can think of. I woke up this morning looking like Will Smith in Hitch. That's probably a really outdated reference in 2023, but there's that scene where he gets like an allergic reaction, his face all puffed up. Not that bad, but my right eyelid was basically swollen almost over my entire eye when I woke up this morning. So I went to the eye doctor first thing, and it's not a big deal. I've got a sty on the inside of my eyelid, so I've got an infection, but I'm feeling better. I took an antibiotic earlier today, but I'm not camera ready, but we're here, and we're here to talk about the best Mavericks win of the season, right?
The best Mavericks win of the season, and one of probably the most rewarding games that I can remember watching, going back to maybe like the Knicks-Mavs game where Luka scored 60. Is that absurd?
No, I don't think so. It's been a while since they've had a meaningful, joyful, coast-to-coast victory. Well, I guess this wasn't really coast-to-coast, but, dominant.
Well, let me tell you where I was. So I've had, so everybody that follows the show knows this. So it's like, my wife and I had a baby a week ago yesterday. We've been at home with a new baby. My 7-year-old son is adapting to it in a way he's not adapting to it. so we've just had kind of a difficult few days at home. So like, I missed the start of the game. My wife sends me to go get dinner because we're just fed up. I check the box score right as I get back in the car heading home from Chipotle, and I see that within a minute and 38 seconds, the Mavericks are down 8-0.
And after the way they played in that Toronto game, I'm sure everyone was just like, oh, here we go.
And I'm just sitting there, like, I'm just sitting in the car, and I was like, yeah, that tracks with today. That makes some sense, because it's like my wife and I are trying not to like get testy with each other, because it's a difficult, it's a difficult change for everybody involved with the family stuff. And then, I get home, and all of a sudden I think it was 18-16 Mavericks. Like, I saw an incredible three. I think it was either Luka or Kyrie. And I'm eating dinner and I'm watching, and then all of a sudden the game is blown wide open. Were you watching that second quarter?
Oh yeah, I was watching it. It was,
what the hell happened?
I don't know if me and you have watched a decent amount of basketball. I mean, to go from down 12 to up 28 within one half is basically, they did it in one quarter, because it was like the end of the first, is when they started the run. Like, that was some of like the biggest ass kicking I've seen in an NBA basketball game, especially when you consider the Clippers are supposed to be a quote unquote good team. Like, that was, I mean, it looked like they were playing a G League there for a G League team for most of the second quarter. I mean, they were just getting up and down the floor, getting open shots. And the Clippers were just like, I mean, they kind of gave up. Like, it was wild to see. Like, that's something you usually see, like maybe in a fourth quarter when a team's just out of gas and doesn't have any more. But the Mavericks stepped on their throats in the second quarter in a way that just NBA teams don't usually do that to each other that frequently. Like that was wild.
What's so funny to me is that over the past few seasons, there are these occasional like absolute shit kicking games, and the Mavericks have been on the other side of it, and the Mavericks have also dished it out.
Mm-hmm.
But do you remember when they beat the Clippers by 50 2 years ago?
I do remember that.
It's the Clippers again is truly something else, and I don't know what to make of it. And so, it's a little bit odd to talk about this game because two players for the Mavericks had a really rough go of things, and Grant Williams had kind of his second straight performance. And poor Josh Green is just not in a great spot right now. He had a really rough performance. But then every other Dallas Mavericks player who played more than 5 minutes was simply outstanding. I mean, I guess you could say Derek Lively wasn't great, but
he had moments.
I felt that his sort of just bigness was really what helped kind of steady the Mavericks, because you made a joke on Twitter about 10 minutes ago that the Mavericks still gave up 62 points in the paint.
They did.
But it's just him being there and being tall was a deterrent in ways that they didn't have the other night, and it really, really helped. And the Mavericks still have so many issues they have to figure out. But like watching Lively just be in the game was really rewarding. He had a couple more opportunities that he wasn't able to convert.
He should have had. I mean, he finished with 6 points. He probably should have had like 12, but the Mavericks decided to throw him
shout out
really
to Kyrie.
terrible.
Kyrie Irving, one of the most skilled basketball players in the multiverse, threw Kyrie one of the worst lobs I've ever seen. It's like they didn't expect to be that open.
It was a 1-on-2 fast break too. It was like the easiest opportunity they were going to have all night.
But really, just to kind of, and let's just go through and talk about guys. Like the guy who really started to put the gas or the foot on the gas was Kyrie Irving. Yep. And Kyrie finishes with 27, 6, and 3. And that stat line doesn't do justice to his performance, because he had his first really like threatening Kyrie game where his 3-point shot terrified they disrespected him on his opening shot. Someone said that in the chat. And then from there, things just went like downhill for the Clippers. Kyrie was the guy who got them going, and his sort of relentless pace. It was funny. Yes, Luka ended up with 44 in 32 minutes, but Luka was looking for Kyrie early, and I think that was really what got them off to the races.
Yeah, and Kyrie finally made some threes. He finished 5 of 9, but he had 4 of those 5 were in the first half.
Well, this is a crazy pants statement for me, but I think at some point we're going to get one of these games where he shoots like 9 of 13 from 3, because the kind of looks he gets in this offense, it's nuts. He's so talented.
And we've been waiting, this team has been an elite offensive team this season without him shooting well. And I think that was the question everyone was asking was, what does this look like when he's shooting well? And I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks like a 47-18 second quarter. It looks like 77 first half points. I mean, they basically ended the game in about 24 minutes of play, because literally the second half just felt like an entire extended garbage time sequence. And it's like, okay, that's how good they can be. They can win a game in one half of basketball. Okay, that's pretty cool.
And I think like there's been some amongst us who spend way too much time thinking about the Mavericks. There's been a little bit of consternation and about Kyrie in particular. And this is just a reminder that everybody should understand that he's still capable of absolutely killing a team when things get going. He also missed some bunnies like right up close where he could have very easily had a 35-point game. I mean, he shot 8 of 19 from the floor. It wasn't he's still shooting kind of a subpar percentage for him. He still has a ways to go. But I felt really, really bullish about his performance. And what was so interesting, and like, what's the thing we've heard for the better part of the Kyrie Luka experience? They can't play together. And this was just another example to throw to people to say, hey guys, They're both amazing, and Luka and Kyrie can coexist on the floor at the same time. They don't even need to do my turn, your turn stuff. There's just a really organic flow to how they play. And I didn't realize Luka had that many points.
Yeah, we gotta talk. I think we gotta talk about Luka now. I mean,
17
of 21.
21. Oh my God. He was awful the other night. We talked about it. And so for him to respond with a performance like this.
He loves playing the Clippers, man. How many of these supernova nights has he had against this team? I swear it's like every time he plays the Clippers, it's like one of those special nights. But yeah, I think I saw on the broadcast his 81% field goal percentage was the highest he's ever had in his career if he's taken at least 15 shots. And Luka has taken 15 or more shots a lot of times in his career, so that should say something. He got back to making his threes. One thing that I really noticed, and this was a kind of a team-wide thing as well, the Mavericks shot 7 of 11 on mid-range jumpers, and 11 mid-range jumpers is a lot for this team. They don't normally, and they only they scored 144 points, and they only went 2 of 14 on corner threes, which is the easiest jumper you could take in NBA basketball. I mean, they made 17 of 28 above the break threes, which is that's 60%. League average is 35. Like, that is a ludicrous number. They were feeling it. And that was really spurred by Luka, who was great from three above the break and was also great in the mid-range. He had a shot. I don't know if you saw it. I think I want to clip it and pull it because I don't really see Luka shoot a shot like this. He, was triple threat position outside the 3-point line. I can't remember if it was a closeout or if a guy was just guarding him really tight, but he basically kind of faced up and did maybe 1 or 2 hard dribbles and then stopped and popped for a mid-range jumper. And he swished like nothing but net, didn't touch the rim. And I was like, wait, he doesn't do that. Like, it was kind of like an old school hooper shot, like a Carmelo. You'd see like a Durant.
You remember 2019, 2020? That was the year that he was like Dirk Nowitzki from the mid-range. He was disgusting that year. And we've never really seen it again. And I think that was kind of an outlier year. But it's just a reminder of how skilled he is whenever he's not.
Because even when he's shooting twos, like mid-range twos, he's usually doing like post-ups and mid-range
or drives or floaters. There's not like a fundamental, like, I'm going to go to the elbow and shoot a jumper kind of shot.
And it looked really nice and fluid. And it was like, it's just another reminder, like, he could still do, like, there's more tricks in the bag, which just feels outrageous. But yeah, this is one of his best. I mean, it's probably one of his best games ever, right? Yeah. I mean, just in terms of efficiency and statistical profile. I mean, he had 42 points. I think before, because he checked back into the game because they kind of, they basically didn't have their foot on the gas the entire second half. And I think Kidd put the starters back in just to make sure, because I think it got down to 14 points with like 6 minutes left, which is like in the NBA, that's totally doable. So they kind of needed him to go back in. But before he went back in, I want to say he had 42 points in 23 minutes before the fourth. Like, that is outrageous. Like,
and here's some other
game, he would have had 60 points.
Well, and here's some other fun things that if we're just talking about like statistical profiles. Luka Doncic shot 4 free throws in this game. He made all 4, and yet he scored this much. He was and shout out to the chat for pointing this out. It was Harmon down there who pointed this out to me. Luka shot 11 of 12 from 2-point range.
Oh, and by the way, he only had 1 turnover. Having the ball
Which is that, and that's the thing we've been kicking the shit out of him for, and I think rightfully so. And so it's funny. I'm watching that first quarter, and James Harden got to the line 6 times. 6 times in the quarter. And it was really, really ridiculous that he was getting to the line like this. The Clippers shot 13 free throws in the first quarter. And how many free throws did they end with in the game?
They ended up with 36. That's probably one of the only reasons why the game
was as close as it was. Because they were like, Harden was in his like shout. I know people like to say Luka and Harden play alike, but like, Harden is able to draw fouls in a way Luka simply cannot. he initiates contact and does little. It's because he's a little shorter and a little lower base of gravity, I think. But man, just a wild player. But then of course Harden felt like he finished with 6 free throws. That's incredible. So he played so well in the first quarter and then just turned to nothing. Like he's like that horse meme where it's like all of a sudden,
It's really funny. The Clippers shot chart looks very similar to the Raptors shot chart from the other night. But again, context, a lot of, I don't have the second half, first half breakdown for points in the paint, but I would have to imagine a lot of that was just second half stuff. The Clippers were only 4 of 5 at the rim in the first half. They were 14 of 21 in the second half. And again, the Mavericks basically played the end of the bench starting like end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. So, that happens. But this was one of those games where 18 points, what are you guys talking about? If you watch, everyone needs to watch that second. If you didn't watch it, you need to watch that second quarter because I just don't think you just don't see NBA teams get thumped. Even the bad ones, you don't see them get thumped that bad in a single 12-minute span. That was a show. That's maybe the best way I could describe it.
Well, let's keep talking about Luka and the Mavericks, but for a moment, I want to take the opportunity to pitch our crowd for a moment. While you're here, if you could do me a favor and head on down and smash that like button. God, I smashed the like button. I sound like I sound like a 22-year-old Twitch streamer. I don't know what any of this shit means. But if you could go ahead and hit the like button, and while you're down there, if you would consider subscribing to our show, Josh and I, mainly me, I've set a bizarrely arbitrary goal of 5,000 subs by the end of the year. Right now, we have a little under 2. We've been inching up person by person. Really appreciate your support. If that's something you'd be interested in, we go live after every game like this, and then I try to do a second live show after most games. But I'm now that I have a week-old baby, I'm curious to see how many times I can do this without A, pissing off my wife, and B, dying. Because there's just no sleep going on. Okay. Thank you for that. Just wanted to take a minute because that's something that I have been suggested that I do at least every single show. All right. Luka good. Luka incredible.
Yeah.
What else? So, it was reported that I think Kyrie Irving told the media this, that Jason Kidd more or less said that the Mavericks played soft against the Raptors. And I don't know if I agree because I think the Mavericks battled pretty hard for the third game in 4 nights, but it's a matter of being tall, and they just don't have enough tall guys. Yet in a given NBA game, effort can make up for a lot. And I felt that a lot of the Mavericks played pretty freaking hard. And the next guy that might be worth sort of giving some credit to on the long list of Mavericks players is someone who's turning out to be probably the best value signing of the offseason for almost any team, and Derrick Jones Jr., who played 29 minutes, recorded his first career double-double with 11 points, 10 boards, but he also dished 3 assists and had 3 steals. He had led the team with a team high plus 36. Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing from Derrick Jones Jr. and why he's working so well with this team.
I think the one thing is that he gets to play with Luka and Kyrie, which I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you are an athletic wing that struggles with your offense, you need to have your agent on the phone and tell them every day, what can you do to get me to Dallas? Because Luka has proven in his short, he's still is 24 years old. His brief NBA career is that he can get guys paid if guys put in the work and play to their role and play within their role. And we've seen it with Dorian Finney-Smith, who, not to take anything away from him, he clearly put in a lot of work as an undrafted free agent. And he's showing how, he's playing very well in Brooklyn now, but, Luka definitely helped his career. Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleba, we can go down the list of Mavericks role players that have thrived here that you don't necessarily know that they would have gotten that kind of opportunity elsewhere. And Jones has kind of been a journeyman, and he just fits like a glove here because he just doesn't his responsibility is just completely different. Like he just doesn't have to worry about scoring at all because he's playing with two of the greatest scorers in the league. And the Mavericks are just kind of like, okay, good, just do your other stuff because he can do other stuff. It's just he's been held back for a lot of it because he can't score and he can't really shoot. But if you're playing on a team like the Mavericks where you don't need to do that because there's a billion other guys that can do it for him, it's just allowing him to. They're just accentuating his strengths and minimizing his weaknesses, and it's showing out in a big way. He's always been a really athletic defender. He's always had a really nice block rate for a wing. Like shockingly, his block rate for his career is similar to Maxi Kleber's, to give you some context. And he had 0 blocks in this. I know it almost sounds like I'm making fun of Maxi, but Maxi had some really good shot blocks.
Yeah. Early in his career for sure.
Yeah. So like before this game, he had 6 blocks in his previous 3 games. Now 3 steals. Like the Mavericks over the last few years have just never had defensive playmakers. They've had some guys that are sturdy and can hold up and play some team concepts, but just like causing turnovers, making, game-changing type plays. They just haven't had those types of difference makers on the roster. And he's one of those guys, and he's done it before in his career. But again, like some teams couldn't play him because like, hey, you can't shoot and our spacing is going to get mucked up. And the Mavericks just have an offensive team that's capable enough to hide that for him. And he's just fitting in really well. I also think, I'm talking a lot, but the 2 more things, I think he's a slasher, which really helps. I think he's comfortable cutting, which I don't think a lot of Mavericks wings beforehand were necessarily comfortable with. He's a good cutter. And then also he likes to play with pace. Like he gets out, he leaks in transition. He runs the floor very well. He finishes well in transition, which again, the Mavericks have been a very floor-bound team for most of Luka's tenure in Dallas. So he's getting, Kyrie gets this team in transition a little bit more because when Kyrie gets the ball, he likes to get up and down the floor, but also just presenting yourself as an option on the fast break is going to coax Luka into doing more transition opportunities because there's actually someone up ahead the floor that he can kick the ball to. So I think that's also been, a huge bonus for him on the team.
So it's funny. You said that he doesn't need to score. Do you know what his career high in points per game is?
It's probably like, I don't have it up right now, but I'm guessing it's like 8 or 9 or something.
In a full season, it looks like it could be, this is 1920. He played 59 games with the Miami Heat, and it was 8.5 points per game.
Okay.
After tonight, he is currently sitting at 9.1 points per game. So he doesn't need to score, but he is scoring. And that's what, it's interesting. It's I'm not sure how long it can last. I don't want to sit here and say that it's not real, but I think at some point teams adjust to the Mavericks, or maybe I'm wrong. Where do you think I like? Is that like a ridiculous piece of analysis, or is he just far enough down the kind of scouting report that teams probably aren't going to ever think about Derrick Jones Jr.?
I think the threes are the one thing that's probably most likely gonna dissipate. I mean, like against Toronto, he was 3 of 5. I think he's right around 38% from 3. He shot 1 of 4. I don't know.
I mean, if he hits 30%, I'm probably going to be excited.
Yeah. So the threes are definitely the one thing that I would expect to go down a little. But again, we've seen Luke. I mean, he's shooting the most wide open shots of his career, and he's getting spoon-fed really good looks from Luka. So maybe he can sustain it a little bit. Maybe instead of, maybe he's not a 38% shooter like he is right now. Maybe he's closer to 34, 35, which again would be good for him. But I think the 2-point stuff, I think the transition stuff, and I think the cutting stuff, I think that's real because he's been that for his career. And I think he's just playing with the two best playmakers he's ever played with in his life. So, I would expect him to cool off from 3, but the stuff that he's doing around the rim, I don't necessarily see that slow down. Maybe teams scout a little bit better and he doesn't have those opportunities. But if that happens, that means he's theoretically opening things up for someone else. Like if they're focused on his cutting and his scoring goes down a little bit because teams are tagging him more when he's rolling it, when he's diving into the paint, that theoretically means someone else, you're freeing someone else up from three. So maybe, I think that's going to have an impact throughout the season as long as he keeps doing it. And I don't see why he wouldn't. But I just thought it was funny. I looked it up. He had 10. He played, how many games did he play last season? He played a lot. He played a decent amount last season. Oh, why can't I find this right now? I just had it. He played 64 games with the Bulls last season. He had 10 double-digit scoring games. He already has 4 this season. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be giving you 10 to 12 points every game, but I still think his stuff that he's doing inside the arc can translate. It just might not always translate to him scoring. It might just opens things up for Luka getting a 3 or someone getting a good look in the corner. Like, I think that's the sustainable part of it.
Well, I really had fun, and we're getting a little towards the tail end, because I like to keep these within about a half hour, because I know people have a lot of options when they listen to their Mavs podcasts, and we appreciate them spending time with us. So we got a couple of guys I think we should touch base on real quick. That ended up being, dang, ESPN has enough like garbage autoplay stuff on their site, just an ad all of a sudden. Dante Exum, I think that might have been his most minutes in a game with the Mavericks in 18, if I'm remembering.
Yes, this was his most minutes. Yep.
Yeah, and he looked the part. He played the part. He had 6 assists to go along with 8 points. He's really confident in running the offense. He's just a big man. I hope the Mavericks can find ways to let him play with Luka and some other guys more often. What did you think of his performance?
I think what I liked was he kind of steadied things down when the Mavericks got down 12. And what's really nice is, like, he hasn't really had a consistent role so far this season, but like, they get down 12 and Kid is probably like, damn it, not again. Like, we just got thumped by the Raptors and now we're down double digits in the first quarter at home. I'm going to change it up. Like, he has options on the bench. And that's like the most encouraging part of this Maverick season, I think, is that Kid has the ability, regardless of whether, how you think of him as a coach. And of course, myself and Kirk have been very vocal about how we feel about Jason Kidd as a coach. But last season, regardless of his coaching acumen, the team had no options. Like, they had to basically run their top 5 or top 6 players into the ground, because after that, you're talking about guys that you don't even know if they're NBA players or they're G League players. Like, it wasn't sustainable. And so now, when things are looking rough, he can go to a guy like Dante Exum, who former top 5 pick, former, how many years he's been in the NBA before he left overseas, played 2 really good seasons overseas. Like, he's a legitimate NBA player, I think. Now he's reestablished himself, and like, that's just a nice option. So yep. I liked his ability. Like, he might not play 18 minutes the next game because Kid doesn't need him, but like, I think that's going to be the story of this season, is that when things go to hell, there are options on this Mavericks roster that Kid can tinker and toy with to give this team a better chance of getting themselves back into games and winning, as opposed to last season, when if they got down big, it was basically like, okay, Luka, Kyrie, you have to save us, because McKinley Wright is not going to do it. No offense to him, it's just not a position you want to put those types of guys in. So I just like that he was able to come into the game and calm things down and get the team back on track. And then Luka and Kyrie came back in and got going in the second and took it from there.
So the next guy, I want to briefly give some kudos to Jaden Hardy, who in 12 minutes had 11 points. Really nice cutting and driving to the basket with a purpose. When he makes one move and makes a decision, he's really good. There's simply no other way around it. I like watching him play basketball when he is put in sort of binary either or situations. However, in his 12 minutes, he also managed 2 turnovers, including one that was at the top of the key that nearly resulted in a clear path foul because he just lost the ball. And Hardy is not like, our fan base loves Hardy, so I'm always really reluctant to get like super critical of him. But Hardy is fine in his Mavericks role, And when he tries to get too cute, he's exposed as somebody who's not nearly as athletic as he thinks he is. And so there's a little bit of give it, there's a little bit of take it the way. If he could do the thing where he's limited to like 1 to 2 dribbles and he either shoots or passes, and he cuts off ball great, I think that he would be very successful. But if he tries to be more than what he thinks he is, he just doesn't have it. What do you think?
No, I think I agree with that. And that kind of goes back to Summer League and why does he play so much better in the NBA than he does in Summer League? And it's because his Summer League role, I just don't think suits what he's good
fine.
at.
Dwight Powell shot like 8 threes a game in a Summer League I went to once. Like, it's fine. It's good to be good at the thing that you're good at. Like, Derrick Jones Jr. is proving that. So Hardy can do the same thing and the Mavericks can win. Not every player can be a superstar. You need guys slotted into roles.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I like that. I like tonight. He was very good at seeing when the Clippers were not getting back and transition fast enough and just forcing the issue. I think he had like 2 or 3 layups where it didn't look like a clear fast break opportunity, but he was like, wait a minute, there's only one guy back and it's not a big, like Westbrook is the only guy back. I'm going at him. And he would score, or I guess he only had 1 free throw attempt, so he got fouled once. But I thought that was cool. Like that's like something you get, like second year player figuring the game out a little bit better. Like that's something that you see the floor a little bit better. And I think that's something maybe he was a little more out of control with last season in transition and kind of flinging himself at the basket without a plan. Tonight and so far this season, he feels like he's a little bit more in control when he's going to the basket.
That's right. Last shout out I want to give is to Olivier Maxence Prosper for scoring his first NBA point on a free throw. He missed another drive later. The Mavericks seemed really excited for him. Love to see that sort of thing. It was also interesting to see him on the floor with the Clippers because once again, he reminded me that he's just freaking massive. Any thoughts on him?
It's just cool. I mean, he only played 5 minutes, so I don't know what
Negative 13.
Yeah. He had to guard. He freaking hasn't basically really played in the NBA yet, and kid throws him into the first half when the game's still theoretically competitive, and it's like, hey, go guard Kawhi Leonard. It's like, oh, okay. But like you said, the cool thing was he did not look like he looked bigger than Kawhi in some aspects, so that was pretty cool.
His shoulders are just so big.
I know. He's a large man.
So, yeah, then before we go, I think we'll close. I don't mean to close on like a downer note, but I do think we have to address the Josh Green of it all. 18 minutes, negative 15. He just doesn't look like he has like what he's supposed to do. He just doesn't know. He's had multiple rough games in a row, and I think that is making the Derrick Jones Jr. of it all look a lot better in comparison. I don't want to kick the guy when he's down. The Mavericks will need him over the course of a long season. I hope he figures out what his role is because right now he just looks lost.
Yeah, the thing with these young guys, and everyone just wants to see the year over year growth, and that doesn't always happen. And I think Josh spoiled us, the fan base a little bit because he was so dramatically better every single season. Like from rookie year to second year, from second year to third year, like each season was like a monumental step for him. Like seriously, he went from a rookie who shot like 14% from 3 to third season. He's like, can't miss anything he shoots. Like, so that was cool, but it's also like, you can't expect him to just be like a 50% 3-point shooter now, like it's not going to keep growing exponentially. Especially for a guy that's 22 years old and still, you would think, figuring some things out. I think the thing that's bugged me is it's like it's not that he's not taking another leap. Things happen,
right?
Especially with the rotation. It's almost like he's taken a step back, and that's the part that's kind of, I don't know if it's too early to say worrying, but for like you said, I just don't know where he's fitting in. Like theoretically, he should be in the Derrick Jones Jr. spot, but he's, Jones is grabbing rebounds and getting steals and blocks. And I'm not really seeing those types of plays when Green is on the floor. He still makes like 1 or 2 really great passes every time he's on the floor, but I don't know. It's just, he doesn't feel like a defensive difference maker right now. And then offensively, it's just like he feels like a guy that maybe needs the ball more to really
Which is so
do stuff.
weird. I
Yeah.
would have never pinned Josh Green as a guy who needs the ball. But it's like there was a play against the Raptors, which I don't think we talked about, where he drove into traffic against one of their rangy wings and got like he either threw up an awful shot or got swatted into oblivion. But it's the sort of thing where it's like if you don't have a plan, then you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. And there's so much involved in Josh's game where it feels like he's just a guy, a guy without a plan. And
Yeah.
I think he'll bounce back. The season is too long for them to not need Josh Green. I just hope it comes at some point.
Yeah. This is one of those things where we're not. I saw a tweet from Mavs Twitter earlier that was like, "Oh, so fan base has already given up on Josh Green," and it's like, I'm sure there's some online people that are, but like we've got to be able to have discussions about these guys when they're going through poor stretches of play that don't mean we're like condemning this guy to obscurity. Like he should figure it out and he's going to turn it around, but we just have to call it like it is right now. He's played, 2 pretty bad games in a row. A couple of games before that, not necessarily like awful, but just not as impactful as you'd like. He scored 13 points in a loss against the Nuggets, and since then he's at 7-6-3-3. I know points aren't everything, but he's also just not really contributing elsewhere. We wrote the post about his screen navigation needing a lot of work.
Well, and that was frankly, I tease SJ about this. That didn't really nail the point home in a way that I would have. In that the screen navigation is one part of what is limiting him. It is not the only thing that is limiting him. It's just the thing that makes you go, why did that happen again in a given game?
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing you talk about, like, don't have a plan. He still feels kind of like he's got that chaotic energy to him,
which can really work some games,
right? But it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked yet. Yeah, like when he's on, I think that's such a great, like, what's his plan? Like when he's on the floor, it just doesn't feel like. It feels like everyone else on this roster right now kind of knows what they need to do every time they step on the floor. And with Green, it's like it's almost like you can see his thought process. Like, oh, do they need me to be a passer? Oh, do they need me to be a defender? Okay, I'll help defense there and I'll overhelp and the guy gets a layup. And it's like, oh, do they need me to be a shooter? Okay, I'll start taking some threes. And it's like, man, it almost feels like his brain is running at like a million miles an hour because he's trying to fill in all these gaps. And it's like, man, just focus on 1 or 2 things and just be really good at it for right now, and the rest will come. That's kind of my armchair psychologist take there.
Well, I'm really glad that you powered through injury yourself to talk about this game. It was needed. We're having some typical snafus at Mavs Moneyball where all of us are, 10 games into the season. And we're like, we're tired. We just keep messing things up. But you're the man for staying up late with us. I'm going to be back in about 15 minutes with the other live show. So if you will go hang out in that room, I really want you guys to come talk to me. We have used a really easy software that you can join. You just click another button and whether you're on your phone or whether you're on your computer, you don't have to appear on video like Josh does. I like it because it's better for YouTube. But hey, come hang out with me. Josh, you got anything else before we go?
No, I think that's good. It was a fun game. You should be having a fun live show though.
Oh yeah, and we'll be back Sunday. Another 6 p.m. game. That'll be nice. I think I'm going to try to recap that one, which should be interesting. Because I'll probably be having to do at least one child's bedtime while recapping. This has been Kirk Anderson and Josh Bowe at Pod Maverick and also of Mavs Moneyball. Please remember to subscribe to our show. Also, please leave a review. And if you're at all interested in this sort of thing, we do have an email address, podmaverickpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter where I spend way too much time. Same with Josh. We'll be back in a few minutes. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with us and have a great day. Bye, guys. Go Mavs.